The hate army troll doing hate army shit.
Hate Army, that guy doing Hate Army shit.
Your name is Hate Army? Saying Hate Army shit. Good vibes to the Hate Army.
Shout out for hate.
Good morning, everyone. It is official. As of now, I have completed 2 of the long-standing RPGs that we've been playing for over a month, which has now freed up my schedule. Let's talk about the conclusion of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom on today's Level 1 podcast. Alrighty, everyone, as I'm trying to maneuver and click the right things and do the right things with a cat on my lap, how is everyone today? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the show. Today is Tuesday, July 11th, 2023. I coughed in time to the beat, did I? I tried to mute my cough, and I think I muted the music by accident. That's what happens when you have a silly feline on your lap. Right, Jasper? Jasper? Jasper Kitty? He never talks to me when he's on my lap like this. He'll talk to me all day long, but then as soon as he's on camera, he clams up. Anyway, so, welcome to the show, everyone, and today we've actually got quite a bit to talk about, all right? And here's why. It is official that we have now completed not 1, but 2 of the long-running playthroughs that I've been doing here on the channel as of last night. And because of that, we now have options. This is what people have been asking for the last month. They said, when are you going to finish these long-running RPGs? You're playing way too many RPGs at once. We want variety on the streams. We want more kinds of content. And when will you get to it? There have been people waiting for various different kinds of content related to Street Fighter 6 that we just never got to because I've been too busy juggling 3 RPGs. Along that line, there's been other games as well that people have wanted that we haven't gotten to because I'm just too busy with all these night streams. So, the good news is we are done. Both Diablo 4 as well as Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Zelda actually completing a little early. I thought that I was going to need Wednesday night stream to beat Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. But once again, much like what happened with Diablo 4, people kept saying, oh my god, you have no idea what you're in store for, Phil. The end of Tears of the Kingdom is very challenging. It's going to kick your ass. You're going to rage. It's going to take you a million tries. And it took me an hour to beat. It wasn't a big deal at all. It really wasn't. And I didn't even really have any... We'll talk about this. I didn't have any of the things you really needed to prepare to beat the end of the game. And I beat it anyway. So take that as you will. Either I guess I'm good at these kind of games because I've been playing difficult games for the last 15 years, or maybe people just tend to over-exaggerate because they want you to think that you need to play 50 hours of optional content that's totally not necessary to beat this game. One or the other, right? I guess we'll figure it out. But anyway, because I beat Zelda last night, we now have freedom. Because that means I have literally nothing committed to the late night streams. Nothing at all. We have ideas, and actually I have 3 distinct ideas for late night streams that I would like to go over with all of you today on the show. So for those of you who are here live, congrats, because we're going to have a live discussion about this and you're going to have direct, feedback and input into it. If you're watching this on demand after the fact, I urge you today, exercise your right to voice your opinion. Leave a comment on this podcast on YouTube and let me know what it is you want to see for the night streams moving forward in the month of July. Because I'm literally going to take your feedback as a vote, as this is what you would like, okay? And so I'm going to try to see, is there a consensus? Is there, in general, something that people really want? But I have 3 ideas that I think are the 3 best ideas for right now. We're going to start talking about those on the show today. Now, obviously, I've beaten Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and I would like to give my final thoughts on the game after a 50-plus hour playthrough. So I will today. But I'm not going to go crazy into it with extreme detail. I've talked about Zelda multiple times on this podcast over the last 2 months. I don't feel like I need to go into insane amounts of detail again, but I will try to very briefly summarize my thoughts. And by the way, they're mostly good. You know, idiotic people on the internet who always want to try to take me out of context or make me look like I hate something that I don't. I actually liked Tears of the Kingdom. I never would have played it as long as I did if I didn't. So we'll talk about that. And also, something else. Someone wants to make some YouTube shorts for DSP Reacts, but they're curious, what is it that you, the audience, would like to see as YouTube shorts over there? And what we're going to actually do is talk about some options and maybe even put up a poll on the community page of DSP Reacts that people will vote for to see what kind of YouTube shorts would you like to see on DSP Reacts, okay? Now, speaking of YouTube shorts, before we even get to any of today's topics, you might be wondering, gee, Phil, I wonder, why have you not been doing any YouTube shorts for DSP Gaming recently, right? If you haven't noticed, I think in the last month I did 2, if that. And one of them was my initial thoughts on Final Fantasy 16, which was, what, 2-3 weeks ago? So there's good reason for this, and the reason is as follows. When I'm juggling Street Fighter 6 and 3 RPGs, there's really not that much to highlight. And what I mean by that is, what am I going to highlight in an RPG? One silly moment where I died or something? Okay, great, but it's not that big of a deal. What am I going to highlight in Street Fighter 6? A combo? A moment of rage? I mean, I get angry at Street Fighter 6 all the time, but it's not necessarily something that's, like, crazy highlightable. You know, we're not doing narrative-based playthroughs where there's something funny to react to. You know, some of the best shorts that I've done this year were playthroughs like Oblivion, where something ridiculous happened, and we could highlight that, and it was really funny to watch. But nothing like that's really been happening in any of the playthroughs recently. In fact, maybe you want to argue, a lot of people have been saying, oh, well, June, if you didn't like Street Fighter 6, was kind of boring. You're kind of right, because both in Zelda and Diablo, and then in Final Fantasy, it's not like there was so much interesting stuff going on in these games, quite frankly. It almost felt like kind of going through the motions in a lot of cases with these kind of RPGs. So, if there's nothing really crazy going on, what is there to highlight? Now, if you guys have, you know, suggestions of things you would like to see highlighted as a YouTube short, by all means, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I just haven't really seen much that was really highlightable because we weren't really playing anything that kind of, I don't know, really fed into YouTube shorts, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys think that there was a lot and I skipped it. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. But in general, I just didn't see that much to really highlight in the month of June and now even in early July. But maybe that will change because we're about to do some interesting different things, and we'll talk about that today, okay? Anyway, let's begin at the beginning, shall we? So, last night, I played Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and I was in the final dungeon of the game, the 5th, they call it the 5th temple of this, the Sage of Spirit or something, which they never even explain what that is. It's really weird because all the other sages in the game have an element. The Sage of Wind, the Sage of Fire, the Sage of Lightning, right? And then there's the Sage of Spirit. What the hell is that? That's like Kwame's ability in frickin' Captain Planet. It's terrible. Heart? Who wants that? It doesn't even do anything. It's a mech. I'm not even kidding you. The person has a freaking mech they drive around. Spirit. Right. Shows that Nintendo didn't even know what it was. So anyway. Actually, it wasn't Kwame, was it? No, it was Mati. It was Mati who had the power of heart in Captain Planet. I got my Planeteers crossed. Now I'm embarrassed. You know, I'm a kid of the 80s and 90s. How dare I get my Planeteers crossed? Anyway, no one cares. Let's continue. So, last night, I resumed with my playthrough of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom in the middle of this final temple. And there were 2 more major puzzles to complete to get robot parts to build a mech. And quite honestly, these puzzles weren't that hard at all. They were actually quite simple. And we build the mech. And then the game was like, okay, well, now what you need to do is walk across the depths to this point out there in the depths on a map, and that's where the end of the dungeon is. Okay, so we did that, and what's funny is they put a ridiculous amount of enemies between you and this point you're supposed to go to, and they put these checkpoints where there's all these like weapon pieces that you can put on the mech as it walks with you, and you can either have the mech attack by itself or you can control the mech and actually fight in combat. The thing is, just like with Link, when you put these parts on the mech and you use it, the parts break. So immediately you're like, this is tedious. Why did they do it this way? Why not have it be fun? You know, everyone complains about the destructible and degradable weapons in the game. Why not have a part of the game where it's not like that, where it's a little different for variety, so you can feel like you have some power and you don't feel weak, like things can break at a moment's notice? Nintendo says, no, we can't do that. We've got to use our tried and true annoying formula to piss you off. So immediately after fighting one mob of enemies and your weapons are breaking, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I said, fuck it, and I just beelined it all the way to the waypoint and ignored everything. I skipped every enemy. I skipped all the checkpoints for the mech. You don't need them. You literally don't need the checkpoints. They're completely extra, have nothing to do with anything, and they don't add anything. It's just extra content, extra combat you don't ever need to do. Just busy stuff to make the game longer, basically. So I said, screw it, and I ran all the way to the final checkpoint, which is a temple. I strapped a rocket on the back of the mech. I launched it up a stairwell, and we fought the boss of the dungeon. Now, here's the hilarious part about this, okay? This is... Well, okay, I won't spoil yet, but basically everyone's warning me. They're like, oh, this is going to be good. Phil's got to fight this boss. This boss is rage-inducing. This boss is one of the most annoying in the game, and we can't wait to see Phil fight it because he's going to lose and lose and lose and have to keep retrying it. We're going to be here for like an hour. It took me 5 minutes. One shot. Easiest boss in the effing game. Do you want to know why? Because I didn't waste my time doing the boring shit getting there. I just beelined it. So here's what happened. This boss, basically what happens is your mech gets into a ring, like a wrestling ring almost, or a boxing ring. And you have to have a one-on-one fight with another mech, okay? Now you have to use weapons that are available, but the only weapons they put in the ring for you are these spikes that are punching, like a boxing match. But because I didn't waste time fighting a million generic enemies that didn't need to be fought and added nothing to the game but only padded it, I had a torch on my right hand, okay? And the torch on my right hand lights the boss on fire. So literally all you need to do is walk up, light it on fire. Now it's stunned. Punch, punch, punch. It hits the ropes, takes damage. It jumps, light it on fire. Punch, punch, punch. It hits the ropes. That's the whole boss fight. It took me one shot, 5 minutes. It was the easiest boss fight in the game for me by far. Like, super simplistic. And everyone's like, oh, so actually if you skip the generic padding shit that Nintendo puts into this part of the game, it benefits you. Yeah, just like it does the rest of the game, which is the point I've been making for the entirety of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Nintendo purposefully padded the game to make it seem like one of their longest, most robust, most filled, chock full of content games ever made, but half the content is completely superfluous and actually makes the game worse. Sorry, it does. It's called bloat. The word I've been using the entire playthrough. It's bloat. If you skip the bloat and you just get to the good parts, the game's very good. But the bloat that's in there makes the game feel so hefty and tedious and arduous. And if I had actually done it as Nintendo had intended and did all the boring fighting, I would have not had the blowtorch, in which case I would have not been able to beat the boss like that, and it would have been an annoying-ass boss fight like apparently it was for most people. But because I said, fuck that nonsense, I'm skipping your boring bullshit, and I went right to the boss, I easily kicked its ass. I guarantee you now people are going to do that. Now that they've seen that, they're going to say, oh, fuck that. Every time I play this game, I'm not wasting time in the underground on that. I'm going right to the boss and fighting him with the blowtorch because it beats him right away. What a waste of time. Seriously, like, I'm sorry. There's great parts in this game. That was 100% evidence of how Nintendo bloated their game, and it actually is detrimental to the overall experience and the enjoyment factor. So, after I beat that boss, we headed into the end game. Now, the thing is, from what I'm to understand, okay, there's two ways to get into the actual end of the game. Option number one is to do an insanely long, time-consuming quest in the depths. Because once you've completed everything with the 5 sages and you've gotten the Master Sword, which I already had, the game tells you, go talk to, what's her name, Josha or whatever? Because she has the quest for the underground, the depths. And you have to do all this exploration in the depths, essentially. You have to follow all these statues down there to go to these various little like, temples. I guess what it is there's that Yiga clan that was the major part of Breath of the Wild. And they're in this game as well, but they're all underground. So they have all these bases and things down there you have to take over. You have to fight the head of the Yiga multiple times. I guess there is like one final optional boss fight against the head of the Yiga or whatever, and it takes a long time to get through that quest line. People were telling me it's lengthy. Like if you do it all, it's not like dozens of hours, maybe a dozen hours extra to your playthrough to explore all these depths and do all these optional bases or whatever. And at the end of that, all right, at the end of all of that, it will lead you to where Ganon is in the depths. Okay, so if you do it the way again the game intends, you waste like 15 hours of your life. And I hate to say it, because that's exactly what it is. It's a waste. Do you actually get anything significant for doing it? No. Maybe you'll get enough pose, and you'll do the quest line to get the underground armor that's gloom resistant, right? But in reality, no. You're not going to get anything significant. You're going to get a little bit extra story as you fight the Yiga clan or whatever. But it's padding. It's filler. It's to make the game longer. If you use your common sense and you say, where would Ganon be? Well, gee, when we started the game, Link and Zelda were going down a staircase under Hyrule Castle. They found this room full of murals. They found Ganon, and inadvertently Ganon gets released, right? Jasper Kitty loves to crawl on my lap now during these podcasts. You silly guy. There we go. And, so yeah. If you use common sense, you say, well, where would he be? He was under the castle when the game started. So guess where he is? He's under the fucking floating castle. What do you think he did? He moved? He went and bought a condo or something? You know, he went to a high-rise? No, he's still under the castle. So all you got to do is go under the castle, and once you fall all the way down there, which is the deepest part of the depths, there's a big cave system you have to go in. By the way, it's annoying. You have to go through all these different caves, and there's a bunch of gloom-style enemies or whatever. You have to get past them. And there's, essentially a big chunk of stuff you have to do to finally get to the Ganon area of the game. And the game really, really wants you to experience this as like this was the home stretch and the final gauntlet, because it really is a gauntlet to beat Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. There's a part where you have to fight 4 different waves of enemies from the game. Now, the good news is all of the sages are with you. So they're all using their abilities, and it doesn't become, I feel like it actually felt interesting. Now, I know some people might say, well, it felt tedious because there's a lot of enemies, but it's kind of the culmination of all the combat of the game. You got a whole team of people with you, and if you're using all the abilities of them, and if you're using the mech, which I used, it's actually not bad at all. The mech is very useful in this part, where you can just keep pushing them back and beating them up and getting your energy back, and if you do it right, which I did, I one-shotted it. A lot of people said that's one of the harder parts of the game, and I one-shotted the gauntlets of enemies. And once you beat them, then you get a checkpoint, and then you actually get to the final Ganon boss fight. The final Ganon boss fight, again, is a gauntlet. Okay? A complete, crazy gauntlet. 4 phases. Alright? And in reality, the Ganon boss fight is not difficult. It's a puzzle, like all Nintendo games, right? And many Zelda games. The final fight is not really a culmination of all the skills of the game. It's just a puzzle you have to figure out, and once you figure it out, it's pretty easy to beat. But of course, the first time you fight them, you're not going to know that. When you get to phase 2 for the first time, you're not going to know what the puzzle is. So you have to figure out the puzzle slowly, and in the game's defense, thank goodness there's a checkpoint right before the boss fight. Can you imagine if you had to do that gauntlet of enemies again before you fought Ganon? That would be ridiculous, but they put a checkpoint right before the boss, which was very good. So, without too many spoilers, because I don't really want to spoil the final boss fight, because it's pretty darn epic, in my opinion. The one thing that Nintendo did once again, this is the only reason they did it. Okay? The only reason they did it was to annoy you and make the game more time-consuming. When Ganon hits you, he inflicts you with gloom. Meaning every time that he hits you and you get your hearts reduced, you can't heal the hearts anymore. So if you don't go into this fight with gloom restoration items, like, you know, food that has the ability to heal hearts affected by gloom, you can't win the boss fight unless you do it absolutely perfectly and don't get hit, which no one's going to do unless they're a perfectionist who, you know, practice the shit out of the final fight, right? So, you know, for a first-time person going into this fight, if I didn't go in there with gloom items, I never would have beaten it. And I think I went in with 3. So the good news is I went in with so many that I was able to fully restore my hearts 3 times, and I actually was able to do it. But if I went in there with like 1 or 2, I never would have beaten it. And that's, I mean, what the hell? Let's just make the end of the game, the final boss, so annoying It's not bad enough that you had to do a gauntlet of enemies, then you have to fight 4 phases. But also, let's make it you can't heal. It's just like, hey, we want you to play our game, but while you're playing our game, we're going to be holding the controller and slightly moving it to the left the entire time you're trying to play. Oh, by the way, we're going to be tickling your ear with a feather. We're going to raise the ambient temperature in your room by 45 degrees so you're sweating profusely, and we're going to have someone screaming in your ear, nah, 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 nah. Are you having fun yet? Because that's the ending of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. But it's challenge, right? Like, this is what gets me about it. Like, how do they not understand that? Okay, 1 thing is challenge. 2 things is difficulty. 3 things is annoyance. And, like, 4 things is like, fuck you. Why are you doing this? It's difficulty for the sake of annoying you so that you have to spend more time going back and re-preparing for the boss fight. And in fact, that's why people were warning me the whole game. They said, do the plot line, the optional plot line, where you have the ability to put down waypoints that you can fast travel to, because you're going to want to have a fast travel point right outside of Ganon's room, because we guarantee you're not going to beat it, and then you're going to have to leave and probably prepare more, level up more, get more armor, get more healing. Guess what? Didn't need to do that. I beat it. So all that bullshit, everyone was so worried that because I didn't grind for 50 additional hours and I wasn't going to be able to beat the game, that I needed this. Didn't need it at all. All bullshit. All right? What it is people, sadly, feed into this line of, oh, well, you know, everything in this game must be good because it's a Nintendo game. Everything in this game must be meaningful. It's not. All right? And again, if you like Zelda and you want to immerse yourself in the world of Zelda, go for it. But understand that's not for everyone. Some people want to play the game, enjoy it, but don't have 100 hours to spend on it. And in Nintendo's defense, you could do that. I played this game for 50 hours. Here's what I really enjoyed. The open world exploration aspect and the wonder and discovery of going into these geoglyphs and finding the story cutscenes. I liked all of the 4 major dungeons. Honestly, I don't consider the 5th temple a dungeon. It really wasn't. It was 4 puzzles and a silly boss fight that actually sucked. So I think the 4 major dungeons were good. I thought the 5th one was terrible, but I actually don't think that that really applies. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't really a dungeon, okay? The ending, I mean, it's passable. It wasn't my favorite Zelda ending, but it actually wasn't my most hated either. I actually think that Skyward Sword's ending is much worse. I actually think that this game's ending is pretty decent, especially when it comes to, you know, the feeling like you overcame a great evil and you get some cool cutscenes at the end and everything. I was making fun of it like I always do, but I had a good time with it. You know, I think actually Skyward Sword might be one of the worst of all the Zelda games. The ending was really shitty. Not explaining much, and the final boss kind of sucked too. So I actually think that the ending of this game was not that bad at all. But what I find hilarious is people telling me my playthrough sucked and my playthrough was invalid when I skipped all the side content when you don't need any of it. Did I not prove that last night? I literally completed the 5th and final dungeon, no problem. I went to Ganon. I got through all of it. I beat the gauntlet of enemies first shot with only, what was it, 14, 15 hearts? People were like, you need 20, 30, 40 hearts. I had 15. Eat it right through it. Then you get to Ganon. The only reason Ganon's tough is because he's a puzzle and because he has gloom damage. That's it. If he wasn't a puzzle boss and it was based on combat and mechanics like it was, it would have been easy. But it wasn't. It was more puzzle. You need to know exactly what to do in each phase. And then the gloom damage is nonsense, but I went in there with some gloom healing items, and after 4 attempts, I think that's what it took me, 4 attempts, I beat it. So it took me, like I said, it took me about an hour to beat the end of the game. That's no big deal. That should be typical for like a Zelda game. About an hour to do the final fight or whatever. That's fine. So where exactly did I have to fucking do any of the stuff that everyone gave me shit for? Right? I know the whole story of the game. I understand it, right? I did all the necessary important stuff. That got the Master Sword and all of that. And I didn't do 40 hours of nonsense, which didn't need to be done. I mean, it's nice, again, if you're a Zelda completionist and you love the lore of Zelda and you wanted the ultimate Zelda game with 5 zillion hours of extra content, go for it. I'm not here to tell you you're doing it wrong. Enjoy. But for people who told me my playthrough sucked because I skipped the content, fuck off. I didn't need to. Everything you told me was wrong. Oh, you'll never beat the end of the game. You didn't get the gloom armor. You didn't level up enough hearts. You don't have the right weapons. You don't have enough healing items. You need to get the checkpoint to put outside of the Ganon room. None of that was correct. Every single tip there was wrong. I went right to it and beat it. So what the hell are you talking about? At this point, it's time to stop with the bullshit and understand that these games are probably designed in a way that someone can play them however they want, and that's fine. If you want to spend 100 hours on Zelda, if you want to spend 200 hours on Zelda, good for you. But if you're someone who just wants to do the streamlined stuff and play it for 40, 50 hours, good for you too. I think that's actually part of the beauty of this game, but sadly, this is where the Nintendo fanboys interject themselves and make it a miserable experience for those who don't play it the way they want. Grow up. Not everyone's going to play a game the way you want. And everyone should be able to play the games and enjoy them the way that they want. Especially someone like me, who I have to balance this game with other stuff. If this was the only game I was playing for 2-3 weeks, sure, let me immerse myself in the world. And I would have probably went back to the Lost Woods and talked to the Deku Tree and did his quest. And I would have done the quest where you get the Gloom armor set. And I would have done other quests that I'm sure I skipped. You know, there's the Legendary Dragon. Dude, I didn't need to land on a single dragon besides the one to get the Master Sword, right? All the other dragons were a complete waste of time. They do nothing. They're in there just for fluff. They literally, you don't need them for a damn thing. They're just in there like, ooh, dragon, pretty, flying in the sky. You don't need the items, right? It's absolutely pretty ridiculous how much shit people gave me for my playthrough of this game, including the TikToker morons, right? When they were all wrong. Literally all the cases people made against my playthrough were incorrect. At the end of the day, I was able to go through and beat it like any other game, and it wasn't a big deal. Yeah, there were a little bit of a hurdle there with learning the puzzle aspect of the end and having gloom healing items. But outside of that, it wasn't a big deal. So why am I such a horrible villain gamer? Because I didn't play it at length the way that people wanted. I just don't understand it, okay? And again, I have the right to criticize the game if I feel that there's things in there that should be better. Yes, I do feel the fact that this game doesn't necessarily give you direction or guidance in the order to do stuff or what's more important, right? Right from the get-go, when the game started, people say, oh, it's an open world game, do whatever you want. Okay, I'll go over here. Oops, everything there one-shots you. Can't go that way. So then it's not an open world game. If everything in that direction one-shots me, then I can't go that direction. So why doesn't the game say, go this direction, this is where you should start? Oh, well, it's an open world game, do what you want. No, you've already defied your own logic. You see what I mean? But people do, again, it's Zelda, it's Nintendo, must defend it. No, listen, at the end of the day, all right, this is a great game. It is. Is it better than Breath of the Wild? The reason that I have a hard time saying that is because it adds a lot, like the puzzles with the physics mechanics and the building are actually ingenious, and in my opinion, the best new addition to the game by far. I thought that they were going to hinder the game. Remember, before it came out, I was worried. I was like, I don't want to play Minecraft. I want to play Zelda. I take all that back. Those were unfounded worries. The game was great with those mechanics. I don't think I ever had a complaint about that stuff. I thought it was fun and ingenious and funny to fail at them and see things flop around and, shit, got to go back to the drawing board. You fly off of, one of your platforms you built or whatever. It's funny. It's genuinely entertaining, and it's probably some of the best parts of the game were based off of that mechanic. So that's great. But really, that's the only thing I can tell you added to the game. The sky islands, the depths, they don't really add anything. It's just more of the same kind of exploration, and quite frankly, the depths are kind of tedious with all the gloom down there. It's just not very entertaining. And in the sky islands, you can't really fly around freely the way you would like. Like, imagine if you had the bird from Skyward Sword and you could fly around any of the sky islands you wanted, and you had free reign to explore up there instead of having to rely on towers to propel you up and finding ways to launch yourself from island to island. It just gets more tedious and too much work, and it's not worth it. What are you going to get up there? Oh, I got another fucking component to fuse to my sword. Oh, I got another one of the 4,000 shrines in the game. You know what I'm saying? So basically, to me, I think that Breath of the Wild, because it was the first time you were exploring this world, right? honestly was like a more interesting experience. Like I remember the first time running into one of those dragons and my jaw dropped. I was like, whoa, that's totally new and interesting for the Zelda franchise. Or, you know, the first time you get to the Lost Woods or you get to the Gerudo Village, or you get, you know, when you're going to these places for the first time, you're just blown away. And the big creatures, the big dungeons that are actually monsters and stuff in the environment, the beasts, legendary beasts, that was really neat too. Like all those things were great. And this game just kind of rehashes a lot of that, but sadly doesn't do it in a way that you know, what's jaw-dropping? Oh, I saw a new geoglyph in the distance. Let me go check it out. But outside of that, like, what else is there? You already seen the whole map. There's nothing interesting in the depths of the sky. There just isn't. It's just more of the same. So, you know, for me, it's kind of a mixed bag. Did I enjoy my stay in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom? Indeed, I did. I'm glad I played it for the over 50 hours that I put into it over almost a 2-month period. I actually enjoyed the ending. I actually did. But at the same time, I'm sorry. All this shit that people gave me in the last month for my playthrough was unfounded. Everything that I did was meaningful, right? I didn't really engage in any of the optional bloat that would have padded my playthrough another 40, 50 hours and took another month to 2 months to beat it. And absolutely none of the stuff I skipped was necessary for the game at all. I got the full story, saw all the dungeons, beat the final boss, no problem, easy peasy. What's your point? Right? Well, exactly how did I do this wrong? So, I had a good time with it. You also have your right to play it how you want. But for me, I did enjoy it. I just don't think I enjoyed it as much as giant Zelda fans. Right? I am a fan of Zelda. I grew up playing Zelda games. You know, like I said, Link to the Past is still my favorite Zelda game of all time. And now, as a YouTuber, I've arguably played every other major Zelda game that's been out there on a console. Right? But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and kiss the game's butt and say, oh, it was my most anticipated game of the year. And oh my God, I'm so much content. I don't care about that so much content. It wasn't meaningful. So I didn't care about it. You know, I kept running into questline. Do this, do this. What? No, I'm not going to do this for you, you stupid townsperson. What are you going to give me? A fucking 5 rupees? I don't need your bullshit. I just want to fucking progress in the story. You know, again, there has to be a point where you draw the line, like what's time consuming but meaningful, and what's a complete waste of my time, and I'm going to be upset by the time I do it. And once you do the second or third thing that's a waste of your time, like, I'm not doing them anymore. And that was basically my experience with this game. All right, forget this. I'm just going to go try to do the major things then because this is taking too long. I mean, we were getting legitimately bored with the game in the first 20 hours. And then I said, fuck it. We're going to start just doing major story stuff. And all of a sudden, the game got good, right? When I started only doing the geoglyphs, memories, and the dungeons and stuff, it got better. It got really good, actually. Like, every one of those major regions was very interesting with their plot lines and everything. The game had all these mini-bosses. The fuck would you fight one for? Doesn't do anything. Oh, they had the 3-headed dragon from Zelda 1. I don't care. Doesn't do anything. Why would I fight it? Why is it in there? You know? I don't know. Anyway, to me, good game. Fun game. Glad I played it. But at the same time, not, oh my God, overwhelming game of the year, best Zelda game ever vibes for me. It's just not. It just doesn't feel like that to me at all. Alright? So, you can disagree with me and that's fine, but you gotta respect my opinion too. You can't just sit around and be like, oh, well, just because Phil didn't play the 100 hours, that means his playthrough sucks. No, it doesn't. You know? You can laugh and you can say, oh, you know, he didn't really do this the right way and he sucked at it. That's fine. Criticize my gameplay all you want. But try to say that like, oh, the way I played the game was invalid. No, this is the way Nintendo intended. They made it so that you can just do streamlined or you could take as much time as you want. They built the game like that. That's because some of the genius of Nintendo. They knew you didn't have to do all that side shit, but if you wanted to immerse yourself in it, you could. So why in the holy hell would you say to someone who's not doing it because they don't want to waste all that time and they're not enjoying it, how could you say that that's invalid and then yell at them and say they're doing it wrong? That is the most ignorant mindset, right? So enough with the bullshit. It really isn't a big deal. I'm glad that I'm done with the game because I'm just tired of people talking oh, Phil's playthrough is a train wreck and shit. Fuck off. No, it's not. It actually was a good playthrough in my opinion. I had a good time with it, and I'm glad that I played it the way I did because I don't want to play it till fucking October. I want to get it done and move on to other things, which we're now going to do. Okay? Okay. But of course, the funny part about all of this is that no one will acknowledge that I said the game is good. They'll all just say, you see, he skipped all the content and he just hates the game.
Because they're morons.
So go ahead and prove your false narrative with your bullshit, your straw man arguments, your selective reasoning, highlighting things that I said out of context.
Go for it, fuck faces. I don't care. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was a great game. I'm glad I played it. It's just full of bloat, and I'm glad I skipped a lot of it.
All right. So now that Zelda is done, I got a dollar tip. Someone says, if you say you like Tears of the Kingdom, I can't dispute that. I'm just of the opinion that if you liked less than half of the content in the game, you didn't really like the game. No, I liked the main content of the game that was meant to be the main focus. I didn't like the stuff that was all completely superfluous to the purpose of the game. The purpose of Tears of the Kingdom is to save the kingdom from Ganon. And everything I did in the game led to that. Doing the geoglyphs, the cutscenes that gave the backstory to explain Zelda and how she became something that leads you to get the Master Sword. How to beat the 4 major dungeons, how to help the 4 major races that live in Hyrule, and then getting the 5th stage and beating the game. That's the game. The stuff that I didn't like and enjoy is the stuff that's completely extra from that you can easily skip, and as I showed in my own playthrough, didn't hinder my enjoyment or beating of the game, unlike everything that I heard. All I heard the playthrough was, you need to do it. If you don't do it, you're going to have a hard time at the end, and you're going to complain and say the game sucks. Well, guess what? I got to the end. I didn't have a hard time. The game doesn't suck. You were wrong. You just wanted me to play it the way you wanted because you have this weird notion in your head you must be some kind of a completionist gamer to enjoy a Nintendo game. Wrong. Wrong. I liked it. Okay? So, hate to tell you, even though you may say things, it's because you have things in your own mind.
Take your notions out of your mind.
Listen to what I'm telling you. I liked the game. I played just most of the main stuff, and it was a great game for that. It was any time that I veered away from the main stuff that I realized this feels like a time waster, and it was. Because I easily went through the game without it, didn't add anything, didn't miss out on nothing, still played the game and liked it. You got to deal with it. Sorry if you can't, if that crushes your reality, that you think that every single thing in the game must be experienced for it to be a good playthrough or for me to enjoy the game. That's completely false. That's your narrative you've built to try to justify the 100 hours. Sorry. Wasn't like that for me. That's just my reality. Maybe it's different from your reality. Okay? I got a dollar tip from Snowcrawl. Says, it seems like recently a lot of people just try to put words in your mouth. Like saying you dislike a game when you said the opposite or try to misrepresent your views. Why do you think this is and how can you prevent it from happening? I can't. Because YouTube allows people to do whatever they want and say whatever they want with absolutely no justification, whatever. You know, like all these years that people say things about me that cannot be factually proven because they're not factually true, but because they present 27 cases of circumstantial evidence that have all been fabricated, it must be true. So just keep saying it about Phil, right? Take everything I've said about Zelda out of context and say, oh, Phil said all this and he hates Zelda. Well, no. Did I say all this? If you directly quote something I've said, yes, I've said it. But did I ever say I hate Zelda? No, not once. So how could you say that? But YouTube allows it. And people say, oh, that's free speech. No, it's not. There's a difference between free speech and defamation or slander. Free speech would be you have the right to criticize. You have the right to say facts. You don't have the right to literally make shit up about someone that's considered harmful to them. That's illegal. It always has been. But people get away with it all the time because there's no regulation on YouTube. You can do and say whatever you want and no one holds you to task for it. YouTube doesn't care unless it's like harmful to children or something like that. They won't ever take action. They say just go sue them then, right? So they will always do this because why? Because there is profit and there is popularity in making fun of Darkside Phil. I've been the whipping boy of the internet ever since This Is How You Don't Play started. And it's never ended. It's just exacerbated and gotten worse. And there's nothing I can really do about it. Unless I completely retreat from the internet and decide that I will never make content on the internet ever again. And I don't give anyone else anything new to work with. That's probably the only way to end it. But the thing is, I love what I do. I love gaming. I love content creation. I love interacting with you guys every day. I have passion for it. If I didn't, I wouldn't be here every day doing it. I would have given up a long time ago. All right, so I'm not going to give up on it. I'm going to continue to do what I feel is meaningful because you guys tell me it's meaningful every day, so I'll keep at it. And I will ignore the white noise nonsense. All I can do is urge people to check out the content for themselves rather than listen to what everyone else says about it. Why is it that there's so many, I'm not even kidding you, hundreds to thousands of people on this internet, on YouTube particularly, who have all repeated negative memes about me. But then when you come to the streams and you watch, you're like, well, wait a minute, the meme's not true. You're right. But I can't stop the meme. That's just the nature of the business, right? And I'm sadly one of the people who's most negatively affected by it, and there's nothing I can really do. Okay? So, ignore it. That's what some people are like, well, why don't you do something about it? I can't. What could I do? Get a lawyer, try to sue people for 5 fucking years and have a long drawn out legal battle that will go nowhere and probably not even result in anything meaningful? Like, what's the point? Or I could just sit here and be positive and make more content every day, continue to be me, continue to be real with my audience, and just have a good time, right? That's what all I've ever wanted to do to begin with. I never became a sellout. I never became a shill. I never became someone who played the game. I don't do this just for money. A lot of people have issue with that. How could he turn down $50,000? Because I'm not in this for money. I'm in it for the love of what I do, for passion, to be legitimate, to feel like I'm putting out meaningful stuff for an audience that wants that kind of content. That's why I'm still here. I wouldn't be here. I would have quit years ago. When the harassment got so bad, I would have been out of here, man. But people don't get that because they can't see past their own world mindset, their own little, very short-sighted way that they enjoy their own lives. They can't understand that other people have bigger, better things to their lives. They don't get it. Well, I don't care about those people. I care about you and me having a good time on stream, so I'll just keep going. Another person, still talking about Tears of the Kingdom. I thought we were past this. All right, this is the last thing I'm saying about Tears of the Kingdom. I am not telling you can't like the game or call it good. I apologize if I came off that way. I'm saying that I determined whether a game is good differently than you. That said, I do think that people tend to think you dislike games when you don't, because you tend to talk way more about what you dislike about a game than what you like about it when you're playing. If the majority of what people are hearing you say about a game is negative criticism, I think it's understandable that they might think that you don't like the game. Well, I'd like to tell you this, that's not what happened, because when I actually played the game, if you listen to what I was actually saying, I was saying a lot of the times that I was really enjoying what I was doing, especially when I was exploring those glyphs or when I was actually doing the major dungeons, or when I was fighting any of the major bosses. The problem that what got clipped or what was highlighted on the internet was my criticisms, and that's what people hear more because you go for the viral memes. And since you're going for the viral memes and taking things out of context of the original playthrough rather than being there for the streams, you get to think that that's what I said more than other things that I actually said that were positive. So the best way that you should approach things in life is to actually do a little bit of research before you make a judgment. And if you actually were here to watch my streams, you would know that I liked the game or that I hated it, and that's the truth of the matter. So I don't care what anyone else says about what I liked or didn't like about the game. I have my own opinions, and those are the truth, and I don't care about what anyone else says. So you should listen to what the person says, take it from the horse's mouth, and not from whatever asshole does who's trying to make a meme on the internet and make money off of it. Okay, thanks for the tip.
Money, money, yeah, yeah. Money, money. Money, money, yeah, yeah. Money, money. Oh, money, money, yeah, yeah. These contributions are mandatory. Typically helps me more than anything.